Hey there, estate planning attorney Paul Rabalais here, and in this video we're going to talk about 5 revocable living trust disadvantages. Okay folks, so there's a lot of information out there on the advantages and disadvantages of, you call it revocable living trusts, including a lot of material by yours truly. But if you listen to or read or watch all of the material on the internet from attorneys discussing living trusts, you're likely to get really confused, reading all those blog posts and those articles on all those law firm websites. And you get confused because generally, and look, I've sat in so many continuing educations, I've taught so many continuing educations, I've read lots of articles, I've written books, I've read books. I know that in general, on the area of pros and cons of living trusts, attorneys generally fall in one of 4 categories. You'll have the category 1 of attorneys that says nobody needs a living trust, and they usually follow that up with some version of probate is not that bad. Or you'll have the second class of attorneys that say, you know what, really, living trusts are necessary in only very few circumstances. For example, that usually gets followed up with, for example, when someone owns real estate in multiple states, they can avoid the multiple probates in the multiple states by putting all of their real estate in one revocable living trust. Other than that, there's really no need to have a living trust. Some people are in the third category of attorneys that say something like, most people should have a living trust because in general, most people want to avoid the court and attorney involved process of transferring assets when they pass away. And then there's the fourth class of attorneys that say, everybody must have a living trust. Don't get caught dead, no pun intended, don't get caught dead forcing your family to go through that court and attorney involved process of and all the time and expense that's associated with it after you pass away. I guess that I'd like to say that there's a fifth category of attorneys that I may fall in that says, especially in the days here of the internet, is get yourself educated on these topics and make an informed decision. And you might say, well, no, I'm just going to do what an attorney tells me to do. Me getting informed, I'm just a simple, consumer here. I don't know anything about this stuff. But here we are in the year 2020. You do have an opportunity to educate yourself if for no other way than just simply, if you watch enough of my YouTube videos, you can make and you can educate yourself and make an informed decision. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to address that content that you see from some lawyers that talks about all of the disadvantages of living trusts and maybe give you the perhaps counterpoint to that list of disadvantages. Here we go. So in a lot of these, here's the disadvantages of living trust articles, you might read, disadvantage number 1, it costs more to establish a living trust. And I would say generally that's true. But I'm going to, right about there, link you to another video that I made that addresses both the short and the long-term costs of having versus not having a living trust. Not only the costs and expense of establishing it, but also that expense that families incur on the back end when they have to settle an estate when someone dies. So take a look at that, and that's a good kind of counterpoint to the you shouldn't have a living trust because it costs more to establish. Oftentimes you see disadvantage number 2. It's the funding issue. Yeah, but to make a trust work, you've got to retitle many of the assets that you have into your trust, and all that is true. In fact, I'm going to link you to another video that talks about if you have a revocable living trust, watch this now. And it talks about the importance of titling assets in the name of your trust. Most people who have living trusts feel like that retitling of assets is just a small piece of getting one's affairs in order compared to what the family would have to go through upon a death of having to go through the court and attorney involved probate proceeding. More on that in the video that I'll link you to. Sometimes people say disadvantage number 3 of a living trust is there's no tax advantages. And I'd say there's a lot of truth to that. There's also no tax disadvantage. And typically the decision of whether you use a will and go through the probate to transfer your assets upon your death, or you create a trust and name a successor trustee who can disperse assets from the trust when you die outside of the court and an attorney involved probate process. That's not a tax decision. That's a tax neutral decision. In fact, there may be a slight tax advantage when you do use a living trust, because there's income tax consequences. When someone dies with a living trust, that income that the trust has post-death will be, until it's dispersed, is taxed at the high trust and estate income tax rate. And then also, if someone has a will and they die, the income that that estate generates from the time they die until the assets get dispersed to the heirs in the probate proceeding, that income is also taxed at the high trust and estates tax rate. And because trusts are usually settled faster than probate estates are settled, you might be able to minimize that income tax effect. But it's also almost not worth mentioning because it can be, just insignificant. So, and then there's, you hear disadvantage number 4 of a revocable living trust. It's inconvenient. And it is a little more inconvenient to establish a living trust, and because of the titling issues that are necessary. However, most people who establish living trusts, the inconvenience of titling, they perceive that, often justifiably so, as far less convenient than upon their death, their survivors having to go through the, again, court and attorney involved probate process. And when you have a married couple set up a living trust, when it all works well, the family's avoiding 2 of those probate procedures. And then disadvantage number 5 is you may see that it can be difficult to refinance property that's in your living trust. That argument actually has some merit. So let's back up for a second. When someone sets up their living trust, if they own a home that still has a mortgage on it, they can transfer that home subject to the mortgage in the trust. It doesn't accelerate the loan. There's some federal law that says you can do that. It doesn't affect the loan. However, when that individual goes to refinance that loan, which is kind of pertinent in this environment because interest rates are really, really low, some lenders, not all, but some, require that the home be in the name of the individual lender. So then either at or right around the closing, the property is taken out of the living trust, put back into the individual's name, the individual takes out the loan, and then the individual puts the property back in their trust. Oftentimes that's all done at the closing. And so some people who have been through that kind of perceive that as not a big deal. I'll do that if I can make sure that my family doesn't have to go through the court process when I pass away. So all that being said, my suggestion is if you want to make a good, informed, educated decision, just watch several videos on my YouTube channel. You can go to my channel and do a search, and you may want to search will versus trust or search living trust, see what pops up. Search, avoid probate, and that'll pull up all of the videos that I've made where avoid probate or living trust or will versus trust is in the title. And you may want to watch 4 or 5 of those and get yourself educated. And then perhaps, if necessary, get the advice of someone that you trust, perhaps an attorney, and then make that informed decision at that point. But you'll have it with, it'll be a well-informed decision. The other thing that I think really important in this area is really important that you obliterate the like button, and that helps the YouTube algorithms tell other people, hey, watch Paul's videos. And then also, if you haven't already, I know about 9,000 people have, but hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you don't miss anything as I keep providing more and more hopefully helpful estate planning information. And I hope you enjoy watching these videos half as much as I enjoy making them. We'll see you next time.